to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody here to the program tonight. We welcome everybody here. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm looking now at my monitor here to make sure we're on the air. I want to make sure we're on the air before we go any further. Here we are. Here we are. Okay, you guys, welcome to Emergency Management Associates. I don't see anybody in the chat right now, so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about Emergency Management Associates and where we're coming from. My name is Ron Tyler. I'm the president of Emergency Management Associates. I started the company many years ago. I went on the air just over 5 years ago to talk about emergencies, disasters, and earthquakes. And we've been on the air ever since. Over a year ago, YouTube took our other channel down. But we've been on the air with our other channel for 4 years, putting up 25,000 subscribers. That was a big deal. Now we have over 4,500 subscribers again. We're going to be approaching 5,000 subscribers very shortly. I'm going to announce very shortly, probably within the next few days, an opportunity for everyone to take advantage of what you see here at Emergency Management Associates. We're going to start memberships here on this channel. It's going to give you all a lot of stuff. It's going to give you an opportunity to join our program and be able to get a lot out of our program. It's going to offer you Emergency Management Associate emojis, Emergency Management Associate awards, and the opportunity to have members-only conferences here on this channel. Members-only conferences, meaning only members are going to be allowed to be in our conferences. Now, I want to make this point perfectly clear. I will never hold information hostage to only members in regards to emergencies and disasters. I will never allow emergencies, disasters, earthquakes of any kind to be held hostage only to members. I started this channel to put out emergency information to everybody to save lives. I'm offering memberships to this channel so everyone will have a chance to take part in this channel. Our mods here are awesome people. I love our mods here. Our mods are my best friends. I appreciate them very totally and absolute because they keep our channel on the run here, the best mods in the business on EMA. So we are announcing membership in this channel going forward within the next few days. I'm putting the final touches on it so you all will be able to take part in that and support this channel. I appreciate all that you've done for me up until now and that you continue to do for all of us. That's why we're doing it. So mods, thank you very much for your support. I want to thank all of our EMA family for getting us to the point where we are today. I appreciate that so much. Now, we have a lot of people here on this channel already in the chat room, so I'm going to go forward with what we want to talk about tonight. Number one, if you haven't already heard, the sun has launched 4 X-class flares. The sun has launched 4 X-class flares. There's presently a geomagnetic storm happening around Earth. The flares launched from the sun we're traveling at over 2 million miles per hour. Over 2 million miles per hour. Folks, these flares reach the Earth incredibly fast.
Hey guys.
And I want to put this out as well. Mark Wages has a complete update on what happened. After this show is over, I want you to go over to Mark Wages' channel and watch his program about the 4 X-class flares. Now folks, an X-class flare is the most severe solar flare. It could have been worse. X-class flares, as every other class flare, ranges in size, for example, from an X1 to an X9. The X9 being the most powerful solar flare ever. An X9 could have been a Carrington event. These were not Carrington events. We are all still here. If this had been a Carrington event, we would not be here. Don Patoka says only 4? Yes, only 4. He says LOL. This is the largest set of solar flares that we've seen launched from the sun all at once in a very, very long time. I don't remember ever having 4 X-class flares launched from the sun. But I'm telling you right now, we need to keep a close eye on what's going on around us. We've been talking about this. This is very serious. We need to keep a close eye on what's going on around us because anything can happen. Just like the earthquakes, anything can happen. With solar flares, the same thing applies. All we would need was be one X-class, 9-class flare, a Carrington event, and we would be launched back into the 1800s. Just that quick. So folks, we need to be very cautious about what we're doing and what we're saying and where we're going. We've been talking about being prepared. Tomorrow night we're going to talk exclusively, except if we have some other events that happen, almost exclusively tomorrow night we're going to be talking about emergency preparedness. Margaret is asking, are they going to cause a Carrington event? No, they're not. These X-class flares have not caused a Carrington event, nor will they. I'm just saying, an X-class 9 flare could do it. These were not X-class 9 flares, but they're powerful solar flares. Right now, the Earth is right in the middle of a geomagnetic solar storm. What does that say for us? The solar storm guys can put a satellite out of orbit and crash it into the Earth. An X-class flare can disrupt radio communications between the Earth and the satellites, the Earth and the space station. Okay? It happens. It's happened before. I'm going to say this, any solar flare from a C, an M, an R, an S class flare can cause massive radio interruptions. Meaning, it can cause ham radio interruptions. It can cause police, fire, and medical personnel not to be able to talk between themselves or their dispatchers. It can cause planes not to be able to talk to radio traffic control towers anywhere around the world. This is a big deal. This is very much a big deal. And we need to know what's going on. We need to keep on top of what's happening. That's why I'm asking you, after we get off this program tonight, to go over to Mark Wages' program and listen to what he says. This is very, very important. And after I get off this air tonight, in our program description, just below this video tonight, within the first 15 minutes after I get off the air, I will put up a link to Mark Wages' program. That's how important I believe this is. This is absolutely vital. This is absolutely vital to understand. Okay? It could cause electrical outages. It could cause grid pattern problems. So far, I don't know of any grid down problems yet, but it could happen. It could interrupt radio communications between space and here, between airplanes and the control towers, ham radio operators, police, fire, and medical personnel. It's a big deal. I just want to make sure everybody understands the importance of what we're saying. We talk about a lot of things here on this channel. This is important, or I would not even be talking about it. I believe this is one of the most important things we could talk about. Does anybody have any questions so far about what I've said about the solar flares? This kind of space weather is crazy. This kind of space weather is literally crazy. It happens, it comes out of nowhere, and it can cause problems. We have no control over the space weather. We have no control over the sun or any cosmic rays from any place in space. But when something happens, guess what? We need to pay attention. Chastina's here. She says, made it to alive. Chastina's been a very dear friend of our program for a very long time. Welcome, Chastina. We're glad you're here. Okay? Now, one of the things that you need to know about the space weather and these X-class flares. These flares were strong enough to affect what's going on around our Earth. We've talked about it. We talked about it many times in the past 5+ years. We've been on the air. Why am I talking about it now? Solar flares can cause tectonic plate anomalies, meaning earthquakes around the world. Now, folks, I'm not saying there's going to be a major earthquake, but there could be. There could be. So far, and I checked the earthquake map around the world, and we have no major earthquakes right now to speak of. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. All we have now are a couple fives. 5.0 to 5.9 constitute large earthquakes. All we have are a couple of those, and that's it. We're very lucky. We are very lucky, because it could be a lot worse. Now, USGS is not showing all the earthquakes anywhere. Literally anywhere. There is one large earthquake over in the Leeward Islands, Guadalupe. Okay? Over in the Leeward Islands. Let me show you this. Okay? Over here, we had a 5.3 earthquake over here in the Leeward Islands. A 5.3 earthquake. Right now, we have a 4.6. A 4.6. But a 5.3 earthquake hit here about 12 hours ago. That's serious. That's serious. Where is it located? It's right on top of one of the world's largest and most powerful tectonic plates, the Cayman Ridge. one of the largest, I shouldn't say tectonic plates, but the largest earthquake fault, the Cayman Ridge. This is a very dangerous earthquake fault. For a 5.3 earthquake that hit here, we're very lucky it didn't hit an island over here where people would have been hurt. Because most of the people that live here in the Leeward Islands are not rich. They do not have the wherewithal that we do in most areas of the world. They don't have the money, or the houses, or the ability to protect themselves. They got very lucky. They dodged a big one. They dodged a great big one. Okay? It could have been worse. One other earthquake just northeast of Puerto Rico. This is Suarez, Puerto Rico. A 3.4 earthquake here. 70 kilometers north of Suarez, Puerto Rico. A 3.4 small earthquake. Just over here northwest of Puerto Rico here. This is a 2.7 near Isabela, Puerto Rico. Down here in the southwestern part of Puerto Rico here, this is different. This is way different. What do we have here? These three earthquakes that you see here are only part of what has happened here. These are aftershocks of two man-made earthquakes, one being an 8.0 major earthquake that hit here December 26, 2019. One other earthquake also hit here, also a man-made earthquake, an 8.4. An 8.4. Very dangerous earthquake. A very dangerous earthquake. All of these earthquakes here are man-made aftershocks. Aftershocks of those dangerous earthquakes that hit here over 4 years ago. Nearly 4.5 years ago now. This is a 3.3 here. This is a 2.4. This, folks, is a 2.4 near Guanica, Puerto Rico. We need to pay attention. We're continuing to have aftershocks here because man launched an HARRP radio wave December 26th and December 28th, devastating this region. Please do not put those letters in the chat. Just speaking them, YouTube could take me down. I should not have even said that. But that organization launched these two major earthquakes and killed people and destroyed property. Heaven's sakes, they do it again. They do all kinds of nasties all around the world, and they get away with it. There in Puerto Rico, they kill people. They kill people. Over here on the eastern seaboard, we talked about earthquakes over here last night. Why am I here? Again, this earthquake being a 2.3 earthquake over here on the Eastern Continental Divide. You can see the Eastern Continental Divide right here. You can see how it raises up from the regular mainland of the country. This is in the mountains, the Eastern Continental Divide. And this is a 2.3 earthquake here. A 2.3 earthquake. We've talked to you many, many times over the last few years about what's going on here in the Atlantic Ocean. Last night we spent some time talking about it. Why? Because things are still happening. Things are still happening. Folks, this mid-Atlantic fault stretches from way down here in the South Atlantic near the South Sandwich Islands here, the Antarctic Ridge here. The earthquakes from the South Sandwich Islands and the Antarctic Ridge come up here to the mid-Atlantic fault. And they follow the mid-Atlantic fault all the way north. They contribute to the spreading of the mid-Atlantic fault. The fault is spreading. It's getting wider. At approximately 1 millimeter a year, I'm told. Which is very interesting because we continue having earthquakes over on the eastern seaboard of the United States and Canada. Because this mid-Atlantic fault is expanding and pushing the North American plate, Canada, the United States, and Mexico in a southwesterly direction. And I showed you yesterday all of the earthquakes that have happened as a result of the mid-Atlantic fault spreading. It's pushing Africa and Europe in an easterly direction. It's a very powerful earthquake fault. Tectonic plates. Tectonic plates moving. What is it doing up here in Iceland? It is causing volcanoes. It's causing volcanic eruptions. It's causing faults to open up. Great big huge fissures here in Iceland open up. We've seen a great deal of volcanic activity here in Iceland already during the past year because of the expansion of the mid-Atlantic fault. Now, while I'm talking about Iceland, I want to show you some pictures. It's very apparent what's going on. But I've got an update on what happened in Iceland and what continues to happen in Iceland. I have a real update. As you know, this past March 16th, there was a huge fissure that opened up northwest of Grindavik. It opened up to a point where there was a long fissure that was throwing lava fountaining for 3.5 kilometers long. A huge fissure opened up 3 3.75 kilometers long, throwing lava into the air. Over the past couple months now, since that first opened up, the fissure shortened itself. It shortened itself to 3 craters. 3 craters spewing lava. Then 2 of the craters finally died out. Well, folks, guess what happened? I want to show you. Last night here in Iceland, the final crater finally died out. There is no more lava fountain. They flew a drone over the crater and found no more hot spots there this morning. Now, what does that say? Number one, yes, it could open up again. The pressure of the magma down underneath the ground could force this crater open up again. It's unlikely though. Right now they believe that this crater has finally died out. But notice that toxic gases that is still pouring out of that crater. Sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide from that molten lava there. Okay? As this crater has stopped erupting, they believe there will be very little outgassing from this crater, meaning that the communities of Greenevik, the tourist area of the Blue Lagoon, and the Svartsengi power plant will not have too much more to worry about in terms of bad air quality, because of the outgassing of the lava. In the past, they were worried because they kept having to close the Blue Lagoon and sometimes even had to close the Svartsengi power plant. But right now, they believe they're going to reopen the Blue Lagoon within the next few days. The Svartsengi power plant is no longer in danger. However, as I've stated in previous broadcasts, everyone needs to keep their fingers crossed. Because what is happening? The magma reservoir down beneath the Svartsengi power plant is continuing to grow. It's continuing to make the land rise. Now, the land rise has slowed down, but it's still rising. Scientists believe that the magma reservoir down beneath the Svartsengi power plant is pushing magma out to the northwest. Out to the northwest. Okay? Let's go back to this map so I can show you what's going on. This is the Reykjanes Peninsula here. The Reykjanes Peninsula here where you see my cursor. Let me open this up a little bit more. Okay? Down here is Greenevik. This is Greenevik. Now, it's important to note Greenevik is basically an abandoned town because fissures opened up first here last November 3rd. Fissures opened up all over town, blocking roadways, tearing apart houses and buildings all over Greenevik. Over 746 people filed with the Icelandic catastrophic insurance to be paid to abandon their homes to go somewhere else to live. Over 436 applications have been approved, meaning 436 families have now abandoned their homes here in Greenevik because of the danger of volcanic eruptions here and or fissures, earthquakes opening up. It's still possible. It's still very possible. Even though there are no major earthquakes happening here right now, the danger still exists where they could. The danger still exists where it could happen still. The earthquakes that are continuing are up here where the latest crater stopped spewing lava out of. This last crater that was right here stopped spewing lava last night. Now, there's something else. Around Greenevik, around this town of Greenevik, authorities built a wall around the town to protect the town from lava. The protective defensive wall that they called it used to be 40 feet high. The wall around Grindavik is now 80 feet high. 80 feet high. Down here, over in the northwestern part of the town, the defensive wall here began to leak near the bottom of the wall. Authorities had to patch that wall. They were able to stop lava from coming into Grindavik. The lava ended up still on the outside of the wall. The molten lava made its way underneath the older lava, literally underneath the older lava, and that is how that lava made its way into the wall and underneath the wall. Now, what happened? Okay? The wall was like this. The lava coming from that crater was making the older lava, pile up like this. And the newer lava was underneath it, raising the older lava up. The newer lava penetrated the bottom of the defensive wall. It got through the bottom of the defensive wall, and they plugged that hole. They stopped the advance of lava. Now there is no more threat, at least right now. They built a wall, like I told you before, around the Svartsengi power plant and the Blue Lagoon. Again, that area around the Blue Lagoon and the Svartsengi power plant is still a place where something still could happen. Because that is where that reservoir is. It can still rise up. But for now, that is not happening. Most of the earthquakes are northwest of Grindavik. The earthquakes are caused by the magma down beneath the surface. They believe that the magma, the volcano that opened up, that was just to the southwest of Grindavik, has now moved further north. It's now moved further north. The first eruption was to the southwest of Grindavik, and then it continued to move north. Now it has finally stopped. Is it going to stop forever? Possibly. But then again, what they believe is happening is that reservoir underneath the Svartsengi power plant and the Blue Lagoon has moved north. It has pushed through the rock beds and made its own magma tunnel. And as it has pushed through those open rock beds, it has caused earthquakes. We've told you how that happens. As the magma advances, it fractures the rock, causing earth movement. That's what it's done here. Now, for now, it continues to cause earthquakes going north. The largest earthquake that they have had during the past 2 weeks was a 3.3 earthquake. That was the largest. The number of earthquakes that have happened over here in the area of Grindavik, the Svartsengi power plant and the Blue Lagoon had upwards of 300 earthquakes every few days. Meaning the uprise of the magma around the area there had caused those earthquakes. Now, just during the past week, the earthquakes have gotten less and less. The number of earthquakes has subsided, but there has been a gradual increase to the north west of Greenvik. So far, that area poses no problems. So far. They're going to continue to watch what happens, and we will keep you informed as to what happens as well. Iceland is a very hot property, literally. It's interesting it's called Iceland because there are volcanoes there. There have always been some volcanoes there. Until recently, they had no volcanoes erupting until about 2 or 3 years ago. That's when the action started happening. It's continuing. For now, the volcano has stopped. The spatter cone has stopped. Could there be more? Yes. Hopefully not for a while. Now, Greenvik is a dying town. Greenvik was a town of approximately 4,000 people this past November. And a lot of those people came back into Greenvik 2 days before Christmas and celebrated Christmas in their town. Shortly after Christmas, the eruption continued, and they evacuated Greenvik again. So far, they've only allowed a handful of people to live continuously in Greenvik. Only a handful of families still live there. Now, I showed you that huge harbor. Let's go back and take a look at it here. It's important to understand. Oh, come on. Oh, man. Let's go back here to Iceland. I want to show you this. It's pretty important. Okay? This is pretty important information. Greenvik had a huge fishing industry going here. Every morning, the boats left Greenvik to go out into the mid-Atlantic to fish. They came back here to the piers. This pier right here and this other pier here, and dropped off their fish. And the fish was processed and transported all over Iceland. Greenvik fish industry was a major supplier to every part of Iceland. People in Iceland love the fish from Greenvik. The people here, they're operating businesses, including the fish business here, may still be here. Some people are going to stay. Others have moved permanently. Okay? Some people have left. Others decided to stay and keep some of the businesses alive. But while some of these businesses have closed down permanently because they have no one here to keep them employed. So some of these businesses have left Greenvik permanently, but not the fishing industry. There was a sports facility here, right here. Soccer, indoor soccer, outdoor soccer, and even American football was played here. It's been postponed at least indefinitely because a lot of the people that lived here are no longer here. It was a sad day when these streets and facilities became occupied by these fissures and essentially lava from outside of Greenvik coming here and destroying homes. It happened. In January, lava came into the town right here and destroyed 3 homes. Completely engulfed the homes and destroyed them. Now, like I said, a lot of the people have left. 700 plus applications were received by the government and the disaster agency's insurance company, and 400 plus, I think the number is 436 applications have been approved, and the families have gotten money and moved. But there's still a great deal of families that haven't gotten paid yet. 700 plus people filed the applications. 436 families have gotten money. It remains to be seen what happens here in Greenville. But for now, the volcanic expansion has ceased. And most of the people here are raising flags and their hands of joy as this volcanic eruption has stopped, at least for now. We will keep you informed of what happens. But, again, this huge fault zone, the Mid-Atlantic Fault Zone, is not going to stop. It's already raised concerns here in Iceland because the Mid-Atlantic Fault literally cuts Iceland in half. This fault has resulted in volcanoes happening. It remains to be seen what happens going forward. Like I said, we will keep you informed about what happens here. But we're still seeing earthquakes hit the East Coast. We're still seeing earthquakes hit in the New Madrid seismic zone, even though the U.S. government denies they're happening. Fact. Over here in Central America, Guatemala, this is a 4.3 earthquake here. It's not the only earthquake, even though the USGS is only showing that. There's also about 18 other earthquakes all over Central America. And down here in South America, this earthquake just happened over here at the border region of Chile and Bolivia. Chalapata, Bolivia. This is a 4.5 earthquake. Further southwest here in Taltal, Chile, is another 4.4 earthquake. North here, also along the coast in Palca, Peru, is a 4.6. These are not the only earthquakes that have hit here in Central America and South America. The USGS continues to hide information. That's what they do best. Let's go over here into the South Pacific. Down here in Luganville, Vanuatu, the other day they had a 6.1 earthquake that we found out that was actually 6.9. 6.9. Today, this is a 5.1 large earthquake. 100 kilometers east-northeast of Luganville, Vanuatu. For the most part, this earthquake was not felt because it was far enough off the coast where the ocean waters absorbed the shock waves of the quake. We've also had numerous quakes down here in the Kermadec Islands, north of New Zealand. This is a 4.6. South of this earthquake, we also had a 4.5 and a 4.1. Of course, the USBS is not going to show it, are they? Heaven forbid. They're only showing another 4.4 earthquake here in Fakfak, Indonesia. FAK, Indonesia. A 4.4 moderate quake there. Over here in Taiwan, southeast of Hualien City, Taiwan, we're seeing a 4.6 earthquake. Does it mean there are no other earthquakes in the Philippines or Indonesia? No. There are plenty of earthquakes. USGS decides they're not worth talking about. It's interesting how they can decide what earthquakes are not important and what earthquakes are. This is a 4.6 over here on the coast of Taiwan. Unfortunately, they've been seeing a lot of earthquakes here. This is an aftershock of an 8.4 earthquake that hit here 2.5 months ago. We're still seeing aftershocks now. And aftershocks here are going to continue to hit here probably for years to come, because this was a major quake zone. This was a major quake zone. This was right along the coast, southeast of Hualien City. Okay? And I'm going to go north only to show you that Japan is not shown to have any quakes. That's a fallacy. There are 4 other earthquakes over here on the eastern side of Japan. Over here on the western side of Japan, the Noto Peninsula. Over here we also had an 8.4 earthquake that struck months ago, about 5 months ago, where 300 people were killed and over 300 injured here. We're still having 3 earthquakes here at the Noto Peninsula. But heaven forbid the agency talks about it. People are still hurting there. People lost their family members. USGS doesn't give a flying rat's butt. One other earthquake over here in the Aleutian Islands. This is a 4.1 earthquake near Atka, Alaska, 130 kilometers east of Atka, Alaska. Okay? There is a heck of a lot of seismic energy holed up between here and the Gulf of Alaska here. We are still waiting, we're waiting for a 7.0 plus earthquake to hit Alaska. It's a matter of time. It's literally a matter of time before that happens. You can see earthquakes here in southern Alaska, going up here into Denali National Park. Over here on the northeast side of Mount McKinley, this is a 1.5 tremor. But just north of there is a 2.2 earthquake, a minor 2.2 earthquake. We continue to see earthquakes going north from here into central Alaska. Right here, Pleasant Valley, Alaska, 1.2 tremor. South of there, Salt Shell, Alaska, 1.3 tremor here. How many people recognize Salt Shell, Alaska? We had a 5.1 earthquake here 6 months ago. That is one of the reasons we continue to have earthquakes here. These are aftershocks of that 5.1 earthquake. Let's go up here into northwestern Alaska. Red Dog Mine, Alaska. This is a 3.0 earthquake. This is over here on the Arctic Circle. This whole area that you see right here is the Arctic Circle. Okay? That's how far north this is. It's a tundra. It's a tundra. For the most part, it's pretty cold up here. It might get up to 50 to 60 degrees in the summer and go right back down to 30s or 20s. Okay? Over here is Wiseman, Alaska here. Also on the edge of the Arctic Circle. This is a 1.4 tremor here. Okay? Now, the USBS is not showing any other earthquakes here in the Middle East, Turkey, Syria, Iran, Iraq, over in Italy, over in Greece, All over Europe here, not showing a thing. There are plenty of earthquakes here. Right here in the Turkey-Syria border region, we have plenty of earthquakes, probably 60 earthquakes. These 60 earthquakes are aftershocks of a major 9.0, 10.0 earthquake that happened here over a year ago. Last January, a 9.0, 10.0 earthquake hit this area, opening up a huge fissure, 14 miles long, deep enough to completely put an 8-story building in the bottom of it. That's how strong this quake was. Over 5,000 people killed and over 5,000 people injured as a result of that quake. And yet the agency shows none of this. There are plenty of earthquakes throughout this area. Plenty of them. Okay? Now I've shown you that. I want to stress what I'm doing now. We're going to take a look at earthquakes in Southern California. There have been plenty of earthquakes in Southern California. Plenty. But the problem is the USGS doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. They're again not identifying those earthquakes. They're not identifying all of the earthquakes. They're only showing those earthquakes that they want people to know about, and that's it. Nothing more. Tonight, we're going to show you earthquakes over in Southern California. Now, folks, I am very much in charge of making sure people are aware of this. There is no other earthquake channel talking about it. No other YouTube channel or even Rumble channel is talking about what we're doing here. It's important. Why? Because seismic energy is coming up from Mexico. Seismic energy is coming up from Mexico. The USGS is not showing any earthquakes down here in southern Mexico. They're showing this one earthquake down here in Guatemala, the coastal region of Guatemala here. But when it comes to southern Mexico, they deny it happens. There are over 40 earthquakes here in southern Mexico, stretching from Puerto Vallarta to the north, all the way down here to the border with Guatemala. Most of these earthquakes are 3.0 to 4.0 in magnitude, meaning small to moderate earthquakes, no matter what USGS wants to call them. And USGS has been calling moderate earthquakes light. There is nothing light about a moderate earthquake. Moderate earthquakes cause moderate damage. They do not cause light damage. Why they made this change earlier this year, who knows? They're trying to disguise what's going on. I'm dead sure of that. They don't want anybody to know. They don't. We have earthquakes now over here in the Gulf of California. And this seismic energy here is coming from what? The San Andreas Fault. This earthquake fault right here is the San Andreas Fault. Coming from Northern California all the way down here, coming all the way down here along the southern border of Mexico. The San Andreas Fault. The energy that we see in Mexico is making its way north into California. Making its way north into here to California. We've shown you it and we've talked about it in days and months past. I want to show you around here just to give you an idea of what's going on. This earthquake is in northern Mexico, just south of the U.S.-Mexican border. just barely south of the US-Mexican border. I'm going to zoom in here. There's a reason for it. This earthquake is nothing more than 40 to 50 miles south of the US-Mexican border. It's important. It's very important. This is a 2.4 earthquake. The day before yesterday, there was a 4.5 earthquake here. This is a 2.4, and this is a 1.3 tremor. Why is this important to know? Let me enlarge this area to show you what's here. Does anybody recognize this area at all? This particular earthquake and the other earthquakes that have been hitting here are just south of Cerro Prado volcano. This is Cerro Prado volcano. Okay? It's got a bird made of rocks here at the summit of the volcano. A phoenix. A phoenix carved in the upper part of the lava plug from this volcano. Okay? Men have drilled into the upper magma chambers of the Cerro Prado volcano to obtain steam to power turbines over here to provide power to the people here in northern Mexico. This geothermal facility is right here. Right there. That's what they're doing. Now, I want to tell you something. This is just south of our border. We've been doing a lot of drilling ourselves, haven't we? We've been doing our share of drilling up here. What I'm showing you right here is the Imperial Valley here. Just north of the Imperial Valley here is the Salton Sea. We have talked a great deal about the Salton Sea in months and years past. I want to take you on a little tour of Salton Sea. Over here on the north side of the Salton Sea at this little bay here, this is Bombay Beach. I'm going to show you earthquakes tonight at Bombay Beach today. A lot of earthquakes have been hitting here at Bombay Beach. Bombay Beach here used to be a geothermal town where they had a spa here. They had a spa here where people were able to sit and lay in hot, nature-filled water, mineral-filled water to gain some kind of medical cure for their bodies. Now all that's here are these old tubs, vacant tubs here. That's all that's left of the Salton or the Bombay Beach spa here. This is also, we've been telling you that the San Andreas Fault coming out of Northern California comes all the way through California and runs parallel to the east side of the Salton Sea. Here at Bombay Beach is where the San Andreas Fault goes underneath the Salton Sea here. And it comes out from underneath the Salton Sea here at Calipatria. Calipatria here. I'm going to show you a seismogram here at Calipatria showing 75 earthquakes here today and every day. 75 to 100 earthquakes, sometimes over 100 earthquakes here every day. I'm going to show you a seismogram from here. Over here Calipatria, the San Andreas Fault comes out away from the Salton Sea, and then it takes a magnificent southwestern turn and comes down here to a town called Westmoreland. Sorry about that. It comes down here where you see my cursor to a town called Westmoreland. I'm going to show you a seismogram in a few minutes of a lot of earthquakes hitting Westmoreland. Interesting, huh? I'm going to show you several other seismograms here in the Imperial Valley here tonight, where earthquakes continue to hit here all the time. For example, here in the town of Imperial, earthquakes hitting here as well. I'm going to show you the seismogram from Imperial tonight. Further south here, guess what? We have the town of El Centro here. The town of El Centro is right here. A town of about 25,000 people. A lot of those people in El Centro are employed here at this naval base. This is Naval Base El Centro. I spent a great deal of time teaching Navy personnel here, military forces, military police, how to conduct traffic accident reviews and document the information for the people involved in the accidents, and also the insurance companies and the federal government. Okay? Earthquakes happening not just here at Naval Air Station El Centro, but the town of El Centro right here. It continues to happen. Then we're coming down here to the southeast. There's a town here called Holtville. This is a town of about 5,000 to 10,000 people. Holtville is also the location of the Salton Sea Desert Research Station. I'm going to show you a seismogram from here showing even more earthquakes hitting down here in the Imperial Valley. I'm just showing you where these places are so you'll understand when I'm showing you these earthquakes and why and where they are. We just barely had a new earthquake here, this red earthquake that I just turned blue. This is Ocotillo Wells. Guess what? I also have a seismogram from Ocotillo Wells. There is a park out here called Ocotillo Park. USGS claims there's a 1.3 tremor here. Guess what? There's a lot more than 1.3 tremor here. Over here, USGS is calling this a 1.92.0 earthquake at Ocotillo Wells. Well, guess what? Ocotillo Wells is over here. This is actually the Salton City. Salton City. This earthquake is closer to Salton City than it is Ocotillo Wells. This is a 2.0 earthquake near Salton City. Guess what? I also have another seismogram from Salton City. I just want to show you. Over here at the northeast corner of the Salton Sea, there's a town called North Shore, Salton Sea. I've also got a seismogram showing you activity here, seismic activity hitting here at North Shore, Salton Sea. Just so you'll be aware of where it is when I show you the seismogram, so you'll understand where it's coming from. Okay? We also have another earthquake up here. This is Joshua Tree, California. I tried pulling seismogram from Joshua Tree today, and guess what? Caltech and USGS have scrubbed the seismogram. They don't show anything. And yet here on the USGS map, we're seeing a 2.0 earthquake, but it's not the only one here. It's not the only 2.0 earthquake here. We have this 2.7 here at Joshua Tree, California. Look where it's at. It's at the edge of a volcanic field. See this area here? This is a volcanic field. All over here. I've been all over here. I've hammered at rocks. I've taken a lot of pictures here at Joshua Tree. It's a pretty hot place. It's a pretty hot place. North of there, this is also in Joshua Tree at 1.2 tremor here today. Okay? But here again, we go back down here into the Anza Gap. There is a place called the Anza Borrego Desert State Park right here. Northeast San Diego County. Northeast San Diego County. Right here. This is Borrego Springs. Here we have a 1.3 tremor. This also, Borrego Springs, is 0.8 microquake. Folks, this is a 1.2 minor tremor over here in the Anza Borrego Desert State Park. They call it the Anza Gap. They call it the Anza Gap. Right next to it, guess what? Guess what this is? This is also the San Jacinto Fault. 1.2 tremor here, and also right next to it, Idlewild, California. Idlewild, California is a tourist trap in the San Bernardino Mountains. There's a 1.0 tremor here. This is the Anza Gap here, also 0.3 microquake. But all this is on the San Jacinto Fault. The San Jacinto Fault stretching all this distance here. Earthquakes on the fault. We come over here. This happens to be a different fault here. Folks, this is the Elsinore Fault. This earthquake I highlighted here is a microquake at Pala, California. Pala, California. Pala, California is a Indian reservation. The Pala Indian tribes here. A 0.8 microquake here. This Elsinore Fault stretches from all the way up here, all the way down here into San Diego County. Julian, California. We have earthquakes here. They're not showing them here. Why not? Julian is a mountain town in the mountains east of San Diego City, San Diego County. A mountain town with a lot of bed and breakfast places to sleep and eat, restaurants, trinket shops, a mining town basically. A great place to visit. The city of Julian, the town of Julian ought to pay me to talk about it. I've been there. I bought a lot of apples off of trees in Julian. I've had apple pie, hot apple pie right out of the ovens in the restaurants here in Julian. You can get hot sandwiches and other wonderful food to eat here, as well as hot apple pie, cold apple pie, ice cream, and even hot apple cider. A wonderful thing. I want to take you up the Elsinore Fault here. This is Corona, California. During this past week, we've had numerous earthquakes here. We've had a large set of seismic energy hitting here. 75 earthquakes here in Corona, California area. This is a 1.1 tremor. This is a 2.3 tremor here in Corona, California. These are just minor earthquakes and tremors here in Southern California. They're trying not to say what's going on. But there's a lot more going on here than what they're talking about. And we're going to show that to you. Down here, this is Mira Loma, California. Mira Loma, California. I'm going to show you a seismogram tonight, of a lot of activity here in Mira Loma. What they're not telling us is up here, it's another town. Loma Linda Medical Center. The Loma Linda Medical Center is here. If Mira Loma is having earthquakes, so is Loma Linda. They're just not talking about it. They're not talking about it. Earthquakes all over Los Angeles, and yet they're not talking about it. Earthquakes up here in northern Los Angeles County. I'm going to show you a lot of earthquakes up here. Del Amo, Pardee, Moore Park, California here. Earthquakes. Earthquakes. So tonight, when I show you these seismograms, be aware of what you're looking at. Because Southern California is experiencing earthquakes, regardless of whether the USBS or even Caltech wants you to know about it. A lot of earthquakes. Quite a lot of earthquakes. And yet USBS doesn't talk about it. Typical. Very typical. Now I'm going to go out into the desert areas of Southern California. Bakersfield, California. Right here. This is the most activity at Bakersfield that we've seen. Seismic activity continues to build here in Bakersfield. This is where the San Andreas Fault is. You can see it. We have minor earthquakes here. We have a tremor here. You can see the seismic activity here. This is 5 a.m. this morning here. 5 a.m. this morning Pacific time. Look at the activity here. This is 6 a.m. here. 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. Look at the activity here. Right here we see another 2.4 earthquake. Over here we're looking at another 2.4, 2.5 earthquake here. For the most part, all of these are tremors here. Most all of this is tremors, but we're seeing some minor earthquakes here as well. And down here on the bottom, black and red lines here, we're seeing tremor activity. All of this is tremor activity except right here. Right here we see a 2.0 earthquake, a minor earthquake. Then we come over here to 1:15 this afternoon. As you can see, I pulled a seismogram just after that. All these are tremors, and this one is probably a 2.0 earthquake. This is also a 2.0 earthquake. Bakersfield, California. Okay? You don't see USGS talking about it, do we? Heck no. Let's go out to Barstow, California. Good old Barstow. I've driven through Bakersfield. I have friends and relatives in Bakersfield. I've driven out through Barstow out in the middle of the desert. And bring this back. That's Channel Islands. I don't want to see the Channel Islands yet. Okay. Again, this is Barstow. All we're seeing here are tremors. Tremors. This is short duration tremor up here. Okay? Over on the left-hand side, this would be 5:15 this morning. Over here, now we're talking about 5:10 a. Or no, I'm not sorry. 5:20 a.m. this morning. Okay, look at that. Short duration tremors here, short duration tremors here, and they go on here. This is a little bit more long duration tremor here. Short duration tremors here, off and on. Then we come down here to just after 12 noon today. Here we have a tremor that started at just after 12:02 p.m. today, and it continued out here until just about 12:10, 12:11 p.m. today. Okay? A 10-minute long tremor. Barstow, California. Yes, we've actually seen earthquakes here in the past. We're going to see earthquakes out there again. Let's go out to Lancaster, California. Good old Lancaster. This is Fox Airport in Lancaster. They've got a seismograph out here. Look at the earthquakes here. A 1.6, 1.7 tremor. That's probably the biggest seismic activity today. All the rest of these are just minor tremors and microquakes. Minor tremors and microquakes out here in Lancaster, California. Okay? I want to talk about deserts, and then I'm going to come into the city. Okay? Rancho Mirage. How about Rancho Mirage? Out in the deserts, the San Andreas Fault comes over here to Rancho Mirage. Guess what? We have tremors out here. I don't see any microquakes at all. These are all tremors here. This is a 2.0 earthquake right here. 2.0 earthquake. All the rest of these are tremors, like tremor activity. The San Andreas Fault. In the desert. In the desert. Let's look at Riverside, California. Riverside, California, folks, used to be very active. Riverside, California today is not. All we're seeing here are long duration tremors, 1.0 to 1.2, 1.3 tremors, that's all. From 5 o'clock over on the top left down here to approximately 2:25 p.m. this afternoon. 1.2, 1.3 tremors, that's about it here. Riverside, California. We were seeing, up until about a year or so ago, we were seeing 2.0, 3.0 earthquakes here in Riverside. That is calmed way down. It's calmed way, way down. We have probably a 2.5 earthquake here, and that's it. Actually, this is Victorville. Where's River? I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. This is Riverside. This is Riverside. Okay? Nothing else happening here. Like I said, Riverside used to be a happening place, even with earthquakes. Now all we see here are tremors. All we see out here are tremors. Victorville, California, I just got through showing you here. All we have is one basic actually two basic earthquakes. This earthquake here is probably a 2.5, 2.7 earthquake. This is a 2.5, 2.6 earthquake here, and all the rest of these are all tremors. Victorville is where one of our EMA family members live. A dear lady friend of mine. God bless her and her family. Wonderful thing. Victorville is also on the San Andreas Fault. Okay? Now, I want to take you into Hemet now. Orange County, California. Orange County, California. Hemet. I have family here. This is a desert farming community. One of my former late brother-in-laws lived here in Hemet. He drove a truck that was responsible for paving roads throughout Southern California. He worked for a paving company. One day when he was working out here, he went over to his truck for lunch, wasn't feeling good, and had a heart attack and passed away. Unfortunately, his son found him. Folks, this is Hemet, California, the San Jacinto campus. San Jacinto campus is a college campus. I've taught law enforcement classes here. I've actually taken one other class here at the San Jacinto campus. The desert area of Southern California. A beautiful town. A beautiful town. Now, why have I shown you this? There's one other place I want to show you that's just north of San Diego City. San Diego County, I should say. Cabazon, the Anza Gap. USGS showed no tremors here at all. Look at this. USGS showed no tremors, but guess what? There are plenty of tremors here, and you can see it here. Why are they not showing it? Usually they show tremors and earthquakes out here, and they're not. But we see long duration tremors here. Long duration tremors all over the seismogram here. Why are they not talking about it? Because heaven forbid they tell us what happens. Because we've actually had earthquakes as a result of these long duration tremors. Cabazon, the Anza Gap, part of the Anza Borrego Desert State Park. Okay? I want to show you the desert areas before we show you everything else. That way you'll get a good feel what we're talking about. Okay? Let's go over into Los Angeles. The next place I want to show you is the Baldwin Hills. The Baldwin Hills is an area northwest of Los Angeles. The Baldwin Hills, folks, is an area where they bulldozed hillsides. Beautiful trees used to be all over these hills in the Baldwin Hills. They bulldozed all the trees, bulldozed the hills to flatlands, and they started pumping oil and gas out of the Baldwin Hills Oil and Gas Reserve here in 1940. Now, what are we seeing? We're seeing long duration tremors here. They don't stop. They don't stop not one lick. From the beginning of every day here, 5 a.m. here, until the day is finished. Long duration tremors. Some tremors like this is a 1.3, 1.4 tremor. So they increase. But what happens when larger earthquakes start building in Los Angeles? What happens over here in the Baldwin Hills? What happens is the oil pressure coming from the ground to the pumps decreases substantially. And that decrease in pressure from the oil coming out of the ground is one inkling that there is an earthquake coming. If you go and watch a movie that was put together in 1985 called The Great Los Angeles Earthquake, You can go over here during the movie and see the Baldwin Hills, see the pumps and jacks operating, and you'll get told the same story I'm telling you now. Before a major earthquake, the oil pressure goes down here at the pumps and jacks. USGS doesn't like to see that. Why doesn't USGS like to see it? Because they have to report to Los Angeles County. And the politicians definitely don't like to see it because they don't want to hear that their city is going to get hit with a large earthquake. Those earthquakes are coming. Those earthquakes are coming. We're seeing a slight increase in seismic activity here, even though it's just tremors. We're seeing a slight increase in seismic activity here in the Baldwin Hills, just so you know. Let's continue through the LA area. Let's go to that area that I mentioned to you a few minutes ago called Del Amo, city of Los Angeles. Del Amo is not just a bedroom community, but is a small town itself, a small city unto itself. Look what we're seeing. This is just more than tremors, though. This is more than tremors. This is full-blown earthquakes. Look at this. This top line here on the left-hand side is 5 a.m. We can go over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just before 5:06 a.m. this morning, what do we have here? This is at least a 2.5 earthquake. A 2.5 minor earthquake. And it's more than one. It's more than one. Right here we see another point where the stylus has risen up off the main line. This is probably a 1.6, 1.7 tremor. But we can see tremors and earthquakes happening here all day long. Right here in Del Amo. This is a 2.5 earthquake. 2.5 earthquake. And there's quite a few other 2.5 earthquakes all throughout this seismogram. Down here at the bottom, you can see the stylus bounced all over here. We have tremors and minor earthquakes here, both on the black line and this red line here. Los Angeles, Del Amo area is very active. We can see the earthquakes here, can't we? All day long. How about over here in Ellis, California? Good old Ellis, California. We see earthquakes, don't we? Look at this. Look at this guy. This earthquake sequence here started way out here. We had tremors out here, didn't we? We had tremors before that. Here's 6:15 on the red line. We're seeing a lot of tremors here. What happened here? Folks, it's not just tremors here, it's full-blown earthquakes. This could be close to a 3.0 earthquake here. Ellis, California. It started off with tremors, it built up to just 1.5, 1.7 tremors to 2.0 earthquake until we had a 2.7, 2.8 earthquake, maybe even a 2.9. This could be a 3.0 earthquake. Could be. You can see tremors here, can't you? We can see earthquakes here. These are 2.0 earthquakes here. We see 2.0 earthquakes here. And again here. 2.0, 2.5 earthquakes here. On the green lines here, we can see these earthquakes. Yes, there are tremors here, but we have a lot of earthquakes here as well. Ellis, California. The place I'm taking you now is important. On the eastern side of Los Angeles County, Fontana, California. We've been showing you Fontana, California for a great long time. What's going on? Fontana has increased in seismic activity. It's gone from nothing more than just tremors to full-blown earthquakes. 2.5 and 3.0 earthquakes all over this seismogram. 3.0 earthquake here. Probably close to a 3.0 earthquake here. 3.0 earthquake here. 3.0 earthquake here, 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 and here. These are small earthquakes. 3.0 to 3.9 are considered to be small earthquakes. They are felt earthquakes. People in Fontana today felt these earthquakes. You can see it. The seismic activity here in Fontana has steadily increased day to day to day, week to week for the past 5 months. 5 months. Earthquakes happening in Southern California. Okay? Now let's go over to the coastline. Let's go over to here to Laguna Bell, Laguna, California. The Southern California fault line over here on the coast having earthquakes. Having earthquakes. Right there. Laguna, California. We have tremors, don't we? All kinds of tremors here. We don't have any earthquakes here per se, just tremors. But this area is also building. This area is building in seismicity. Please don't forget that. Don't forget it. Because people need to know what's happening. A larger earthquake is incoming here. I promise you that. Over on the north side of LA, we have a town called Moore Park. Moore Park, California. We used to see nothing but tremors here. That ended months ago. Now we are seeing full-blown earthquakes such as this. 2.8, 2.9 earthquake right here. A 2.8, 2.9 earthquake right here. We have 2.0 earthquakes here as well. We have a lot of tremors here. This is only increasing here in northern LA, northern Los Angeles. Let's go to downtown Los Angeles, over to the Emergency Operations Center in the City County building in Los Angeles. Look at this. While seismic energy here at the city center doesn't look like it's threatening, we see some increase in seismic energy here at the LA City Center. Some small increases. These are tremors. This is nothing but tremors over in the LA City County building. But that's not all, folks. There's more. There's a lot more. How about Pardee, California? Just on the north side of Los Angeles. Look at this. We used to see nothing but tremors here. Nothing but tremors, but we're also seeing some earthquakes, such as this one here. This is so close to being a 3.0 small earthquake, it's not even funny. This was just after 7:48 this morning. 2.9, 3.0 earthquake here in Pardee, California. We have a lot of 2.0 minor earthquakes as well. We have tremors here. The seismicity is increasing. Not just the number of earthquakes, but the magnitude of the earthquakes is increasing. Okay? Ronald, California. Ronald, California. Look at this. Here we had nothing but tremors. Nothing but tremors 24 hours a day. Folks, from 4 a.m. on this particular seismogram until after 3:15 here. Tremors. All kinds of tremors. Up here, these are 1.6, 1.7 tremors here. The size and magnitude of the tremors are increasing. Ronald, California. That's not all, folks. There's more. Let's go over near where my wife was born. She was just born west of Rancho Palos Verdes, California. Rancho Palos Verdes, California. This is tremors. These are just minor tremors and microquakes. We have a 1.5 tremor right there. We have 1.3 tremors here. 1.2, 1.3 tremors here. Just minor tremors here at Rancho Palos Verdes. Okay? It's a beautiful housing area. Beautiful housing area here in Rancho Palos Verdes. RPV, like they call it. How about Rio Hondo? Another nice area. Good old Rio Hondo. We see a bunch of earthquakes here, not earthquakes, I'm sorry. We see a bunch of tremors here all day long. It used to be scattered throughout the day. Now it's continuing every 15 minutes all day long. From 4 a.m. here to after 2:20 p.m. here. 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 tremors here at Rio Hondo. How about that? I want to take you now over one of my favorite spots, Long Beach, California. Long Beach, California. I have spent a great deal of time here in Long Beach. Guess what? From the time the seismographs started recording information here, just after 4 a.m. Actually 5 a.m. in this one. Tremors. Tremors all day long. Except between approximately, and you're not going to believe this, approximately 11:12 a.m. this morning until 11:30. They turned off the seismograph. Then they turned it on. And we continued having tremors here, didn't we? Until approximately 1:55 p.m. this afternoon. All of a sudden, we had a 3.0 small earthquake. 3.0 small earthquake here in Long Beach. Fancy that. We've been showing you seismic energy building here in Los Angeles, and all of a sudden here in Long Beach, we have a 3.0 earthquake. It's not all, folks, there's more. Let's show you a lot more than that. Okay? Long Beach. There's another place called State Street. over by Disneyland that I want to show you. Guess what, guys? A lot more information here. Disneyland, guys. Disneyland. What do we have here? This is a 3.0 earthquake, small earthquake. 3.0 small earthquake. It started over here just after 6:02 a.m. Just after 5:04 a.m. this morning. 3.0 earthquake. 3.0 earthquake here, 3.0 earthquake here. Small earthquakes. Just small earthquakes. Now, folks, that's not all, folks. There's a lot more. Look at all this. It continues. The seismic activity continued minute to minute, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes, every hour, all day long. Until we got down here at the bottom lines here. That's probably continued on since then. Folks, right here. This would be 4:10 p.m. this afternoon. A 3.0 earthquake. 4:08 p.m. this afternoon. A 3.0 earthquake. 4:11 a.m. 3.0 earthquake. 3.0 earthquake here as well. This is the most seismic energy we've had over near Anaheim, California in a very long time. Yes, they closed down Disneyland because they had 3.5, 4.0 earthquakes several weeks ago. They closed down Disneyland rides for about a half hour, an hour, to make sure there was no damage there. Then they reopened the rides. But as you can see, guess what? Seismic energies continue to pound this area. Anaheim, California, Disneyland, and Knott's Berry Farm are getting hit with these small earthquakes. Getting hit with small earthquakes. It's going to increase, guys. Seismic energy is going to increase. It's only getting larger and larger. Okay? I've shown you earthquakes and tremors in Long Beach before. I've shown you earthquakes and tremors here at State Street in Anaheim before. Now you can see the earthquakes are getting larger. Earthquakes are getting larger. How about the volcano over in Walnut La Puente? Look at this. Walnut La Puente. See these earthquakes here? The tops and the bottom of the seismic signatures are being cut off. That means the agency does not want to see how strong these earthquakes are. By themselves, these earthquake signatures by themselves are at least 3.0 earthquakes. These 3.0 earthquakes are long duration quakes. This is at a volcano, Walnut La Puente in California. Yes, we're seeing tremors here, but we're also seeing full-blown earthquake activity caused by magma coming into the magma chamber of this volcano. And yet, nobody's talking about this as a volcano. Nobody. Nobody. Why not? Why not? Why are they not telling people about earthquakes at State Street, Anaheim, California? Heaven forbid they are honest with those of us that know what's going on. Heaven forbid. Playa del Rey to the north coast of Los Angeles. I showed you Laguna Bell, now I'm showing you Playa del Rey, Marina del Rey. These are tremors. These are tremors. Right here we have approximately a 1.3, 1.4 tremor. The rest of these are just minor tremors. And you can see where it's a little bit more than that. Okay? Seismicity is increasing everywhere. It's increasing everywhere. Okay? Let's go over to San Diego County. I first want to take you over to San Onofre. San Onofre, California is where the nuclear power plant was. They are trying to decommission the nuclear power plant. But what are we seeing still? Nothing more than tremors. That's all that has ever hit San Onofre is tremor activity. You can see it here. Sometimes the tremors get larger, but they die off. It's not always going to be that simple. Now, how about at Camp Pendleton? Camp Pendleton, California, North San Diego County. Yes, we have tremors building up here. This is not munitions being fired by the Marine Corps. These are actual tremors recorded by the seismograph, recorded on the seismogram. Camp Pendleton is also feeling the tremor increase. It's happening. It's happening, guys. I want now to go over to way deep into Southern California, into the Imperial Valley. Good old Imperial Valley. I want to show you Bombay Beach. Good old Bombay Beach. Earthquakes at Bombay Beach. This is where the San Andreas Fault starts to go beneath the Salton Sea. Just by themselves, these would be 3.0 earthquakes. But these 3.0 earthquakes, such as this is, are long duration quakes. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes of earthquakes. 4 minutes of earthquakes, and guess what? The top and the bottom of this seismic sequence was cut off. It may have been a lot stronger than a 3.0 earthquake. What else tells us what happened here? We have a secondary quake here. The secondary quake tells us a lot. This is probably closer to a 4.0 earthquake because this secondary wave lasted here 3 minutes. The secondary wave lasted 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes here. This is probably a 4.0 moderate quake. Okay? Over here, just to the left of that, just after 5 a.m. this morning. Again, we have 2.5 minutes of earthquake activity. The bottom of it is covered by other activity here, other color. Just after 6 a.m. we had another earthquake. And just after 6:45 we had another here. 2.5 minutes of seismic activity here. Then here, at approximately 10:34 a.m. this morning, that's when this sequence stopped, or started. 3.0 small earthquake. 3.0 small earthquake here. 3.0 small earthquake here. It didn't stop. This seismic activity continued here. You see the thickness of this line here? It continued. back-to-back earthquakes. The seismic energy did not stop. Again here after 12:45, approximately 12:51 a.m. this afternoon, 12:51 p.m. this afternoon. Another sequence here, 2.5 minutes long. Top cut off, the bottom cut off as well. This black one here, just after, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just after 1:05 this afternoon. We had tremor sequence start, right? And then we had a full-blown earthquake start, starting right here. That continued for 3 minutes over here. Then again, we had a 2-minute secondary wave. So this is probably a 3.7, 3.8 earthquake. This earthquake here, it could have been a 3.5, 3.6 earthquake here. Bombay Beach, very active today. It's active every day like this. It's active every day like this. There isn't a day go by that it's not active. Then, like I said, we drop down to the southeastern side of the Salton Sea. Calipatria. This is a USGS seismograph. USGS seismograph. Guess what? Look at these dotted lines. This is not typical of what we'd see on a seismogram, is it? Heck no. This is artifact. This is false information. Yes, we are seeing tremors here. We are seeing tremors. We are also seeing earthquakes over here. This earthquake here started after 3:45 p.m. yesterday afternoon. So this is about 3:50 p.m. yesterday afternoon. Probably a 3.0 earthquake. Close to a 3.0 earthquake. How about this one here? We see the bottom of it. We don't see the top. Probably a 2.5, 2.8 earthquake. Tremors, 2.0 earthquake. 2.0 earthquake, more tremors. 2.0 earthquake. 2.2 earthquake. But we don't know how strong it was because, again, the bottom and the top of the signal has been cut off. It could have been larger. The same thing with this one. We have 3 earthquakes here. This one here, and also this one here. 2.0, 2.3 earthquakes, each one of them. This earthquake here, 2.2 earthquake. This one here is another one that it lasted about 10 seconds. The shaking lasted about 10 seconds, but the top and the bottom of this sequence was cut off. 10 seconds worth of shaking. Calipatria, California. 75 earthquakes and tremors here. 75 earthquakes here and tremors here today. This is typical. This is very typical. Now, let me show you Salton City. This is over on the west side of the Salton Sea, right? Oh, yeah. And USGS showed us a 1.5 quake, or tremor, 1.5 quake. Where is that quake here? Where is that tremor sequence here? All we're seeing here are long duration 1.2, 1.3 tremors here. 1.2 tremors here. 1.1, 1.2 tremors here. Where is that 1.5 that they showed on the map? Who's lying? Who's lying? Who's not telling the truth? Now, let's go over to the Imperial Valley. El Centro. I showed you the El Centro Naval Air Station in El Centro City. A town of 25,000 people. Look at this. 3.0 earthquakes all day long here. 3.0 earthquakes all day long. What is this here? This squiggly line here is magma headed for the Salton Sea. Magma headed for the Salton Butte volcano here. That's why this line goes up and down here. This is magma headed for the Salton Butte volcano. Larger or small earthquakes here. Small earthquakes all day long here at El Centro. One of our own family members here, Juanito, lives in El Centro. I did not see him in our chat room tonight. But when he has been here, he has verified that these earthquakes happen. He has felt these earthquakes when they've happened. El Centro, California. It didn't used to be that way. It definitely did not used to be that way. Let's go over to the town of Imperial here. Look at this. Imperial usually has a bunch of tremors here, right? Absolutely. What happened here? We have earthquakes here. On this blue line, on this red line here, 2.0 earthquakes here, and here. Folks, the bottom of this earthquake sequence here is hidden by this other color down here. These were at least 3.0, 3.5 earthquakes here at the town of Imperial. USGS did not show any of this earthquake activity. None. I trust the seismograms before I will ever trust the agency. This proves what happens. They're not fooling anybody. They are not fooling anybody. Let's go over to Holtville. The Salton Sea Desert Research Station in Holtville. Look at this. Tremors here too. Look at this. Tremors here too. 2.0 minor earthquakes here. 2.0, 2.3 earthquakes here. Maybe larger. How about here? At least a 2.0 earthquake here. Folks, what happened here? This earthquake started right here, and it's raised up here, and it's gone down here. This is probably close to a 3.0 earthquake. Okay? Incredible. Incredible. Look at these tremors and minor earthquakes here. These are tremors. This is a 2.0 earthquake. That's a 2.0 earthquake. This is a 2.0 earthquake. This is an earthquake sequence here. We have earthquake activity here at the Salton Sea Desert Research Station in Holtville, California. All over the Imperial Valley, we're seeing earthquakes today. Every day. Every day. Okay? Every day this happens. I may not show it to you every day, but it's happening here. I could interrupt our program and go to these earthquakes here and show you exactly what's happening every day. Does anybody have any questions for me? Demon Catman says, yes, Ron, did sorry. Catch up at the end what you missed. Incredible. Richard Smith, my good friend from out of Nova Scotia, Canada. Mona passage between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. A 3.2 small earthquake. 3.2 small earthquake in the Mona Passage between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Pretty much every day. Every day. Any questions, guys? I know for a fact I've covered a lot of material. Earthquakes are still happening in the Pacific Northwest. Earthquakes are still happening in Europe. USGS won't admit it, will they? Heaven knows. Excuse me. The United States Geological Survey will never admit what they're doing or what they're not doing. I know we've gone a long time tonight. I know that. I decided tonight I would pick up this book called Standing for Something by Gordon B. Hinckley, and I'd read a few passages to you. Because we try to stand for something, don't we? We try to stand for truth. We try to stand for what is not just true, but what is right in our countries, wherever we might be. Whether we're in South America, whether we're in Africa, whether we are in Croatia or Romania, or England or Iceland, Canada or the United States, we're trying to stand for something. Gordon B. Hinckley talked about 4 years before he wrote this book. He said he was taken aback by an unexpected invitation to a luncheon at the Harvard Club in New York City. From prior experience, he said, I figured the food would be mediocre at best. But since I've been asked to break bread with the hitherto mysterious octogenarian president of the LDS Church, and because the invitation was tendered by the president's behalf by a Jewish-owned public relations firm, it was too tantalizing to pass up. For decades, I've been trying to catch up with LDS leaders. Any top LDS leader just to talk to. Mike Wallace had been with 60 Minutes for a very long time. He'd been turned down on a regular basis. This time, Gordon B. Hinckley invited Mike Wallace to dinner, or to lunch. Many of his friends had offered to put in a good word in order for Mike Wallace to have dinner or lunch with Gordon B. Hinckley. He understood that 60 Minutes would probably do an investigation on everything he would talk about. But what Mike Wallace had in mind this time was to do rather an exploration of what kind of individual that Gordon B. Hinckley was. How did he get his job? What about the LDS people? What about the polygamy that they used to have back in the early 1800s? And how about black folks? This is Mike Wallace talking. Black folks were not liked anywhere in the United States except in LDS congregations. Why? Why? At one point in time, the LDS Church was started by a man named Joseph Smith, a young man at age 14, who lived on a farm in upstate New York. Merely nosy questions of what happened with Joseph Smith. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people listen to rumors, rumor control. Mike Wallace finally got a meeting with Gordon B. Hinckley. A yes. Mike Wallace had attempted to get invitations to Rome to speak with the Pope about the Roman Catholic Church. It never happened. So Mike Wallace said he was totally unprepared for a cordial visit, even a sunny greeting, S-U-N-N-Y, a sunny greeting from Gordon B. Hinckley at the luncheon. And he says, I was still hesitant when, following the remarks of Gordon B. Hinckley at the beginning when they sat down, And all of a sudden, he threw the floor open for any kind of questions I wanted to ask. I wondered aloud to him whether he would entertain the notion of an interview on 60 Minutes. Gordon B. Hinckley bespectacled, his eyes literally twinkled as he good-naturedly allowed that he sounded like an appealing notion. After all, he really had nothing to hide, and he imagined he'd have little difficulty handling whatever queries that I looked at him for. He heard and answered worse. He was sure during his young missionary years in London, where he had taken and whatever the skeptics and non-believers had thrown at him in his Hyde Park appearances and or confrontations out on the street. So all the necessary details and arrangements were quickly made so I could meet with Gordon Hinckley. After all the necessary details and arrangements were made, he put at our disposal just about anyone that we would want to talk with from the Salt Lake infrastructure. He put up no objections to our talking to his critics, inside and outside the LDS Church. He gave us all the camera time we needed. And when we asked for a second sit-down some weeks after the first, so that we could put some questions we'd missed on the first go-around, he was perfectly agreeable to it. It turned out that he was so good as his promised word back to the Harvard Club. As a result, we came away with a fascinating profile of a genuinely remarkable man, which confronted more than a few LDS friends of his, who would let me know later how chary they had been when they first learned what I'd been up to. Their original take was Hinckley was going to walk and talk with Mike Wallace. Is he crazy? Doesn't he understand what could happen when 60 Minutes sets out to do one of their hatchet jobs? Well, what happened was that my 60 Minutes colleagues and I learned from the time that we spent with Gordon Hinckley and his wife and his staff and other LDS people we talked to, that this warm and thoughtful and decent and optimistic leader of the LDS Church fully deserves the almost universal admiration that he gets. I knew that that may sound more than a trifle corny coming from a dyed-in-the-wool, jaded New York person as me, Mike Wallace, based on my own repertorial cynicness. But it was difficult not to arrive at that conclusion after talking not only with Gordon Hinckley, but about him with hard-headed folks such as Orrin Hatch, and Bill Marriott, and Steve Young, the ball player, and Dave Checketts. The last name individual runs Madison Square Garden in New York, and was one of the best LDS people who had worried about what could result if Gordon Hinckley laid himself open to my abrasions. Checketts from the Madison Square Garden was so surprised when he saw our piece on the air that he told me, quote, I mentioned this only in interest of full disclosure, to call him any time I had trouble getting tickets to a fight or a basketball game at the Garden. Further, in the interest of full disclosure, as an 81-year-old man myself, perhaps I can be excused for recalling this exchange I had with Gordon Hinckley near the end of that 60 Minutes profile. Wallace. There are those who say this is a gerontocracy, that the LDS Church is run by old men. Gordon Hinckley. Isn't it wonderful to have a man of maturity at the head? A man who isn't blown about by every wind of doctrine? Wallace. Absolutely, as long as he's not dotty. Not crazy. Hinckley says, thank you for the compliment. Mike Wallace described Gordon Hinckley as far from Dottie. As you go through this book, you're going to find an agile, thoughtful, and engaging mind bent on persuading us to ruminate along with him on old-fashioned values, by name virtue and integrity. Gordon Hinckley in the first chapter talks about the secularization of America. If we are to continue to have the freedoms that came of the inspiration of the Almighty to our founding fathers, we must return to God, who is their true author. Gordon Hinckley says, I'm a churchman. I readily acknowledge, therefore, that my perspective is a reflection of my upbringing, my training, the virtues and principles in which I believe, and my personal observations as I near age 90. Gordon Hinckley was already near age 90 at this time. The 20th century was just a decade old when I was born to a loving, God-fearing parent. In 1910, a male born in the United States could expect to live to age 50. And I am happy to say that I bettered that expectation considerably. He goes on to talk about his health, and his family, and his upbringing, and his church. He goes on to talk about the world. Tis fine to see the old world and travel up and down among the famous palaces and cities of renown, to admire the crumbly castles and the statues of the kings. But now I think I've had enough of antiquated things, so it's home again, America for me. My heart is turning home again, and there I long to be, in the land of youth and freedom beyond the ocean bars, where the air is full of sunlight and the flag is full of stars. I love America. I love America for its great and brawny strength, the products of its vital factories, the science of its laboratories. I love it for the great intellectual capacity of its people, and for the generous hearts and helping hands. It is unique among the nations of the earth, in its discovery, in its birth as a nation, in the amalgamation of the races and cultures of the world that have come to its shores, in the consistency and the strength of its government. I love America for the tremendous genius of its scientists, its researchers, its laboratories, its universities, and the tens of thousands of facilities devoted to the increase of human health and comfort, to the sustenance of life, and improved communication and transportation. Its great throbbing and thriving industries have blessed the entire world. The standard of living of its people has been the envy of the entire earth. Its farmlands have yielded an abundance of undreamed of in most lands of the world. The entrepreneurial environment that has sustained its industry has been the envy of and model of all nations. My wife Marjorie and I visited Jerusalem long ago, before the 1967 war. It was then a divided city. We retained the services of a guide who was an Arab. And during our tour, we stood at an elevation where we could see the other side of Jerusalem. With tears in his eyes, this man pointed to the home from which he had been dispossessed. And then he said with deep emotion, "You belong to the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Yours is the only nation that has been victorious in war and never claimed any territory as its own prize of conquest. Your people have given millions, even billions of dollars to the poor of the earth. and never asked for anything in return. Rather, even after coming off as a conqueror, you have poured other yet billions of dollars to revive those who had been your enemies in bloody conflicts. I had never thought of this significant perspective before. In no instance during my lifetime, not in the First World War or the Second, nor in the Korean War or Vietnam or the Persian Gulf, did our nation seize and hold territory for itself as a prize of conquest. To the contrary, on a train from Fukuoka on the South Island of Japan to Tokyo, I passed mile upon mile of great modern steel mills, built largely with money from the U.S. Following the devastation of Japan, now the Japanese are tremendous competitors in the marketplaces of the world. Not only did we not seize territory during World War II, but we provided impetus that has led to their superiority in many business enterprises. Surely there is no story like this in all of recorded history. On another occasion, I accompanied U.S. Secretary Attaché to the docks of Bombay, India, and there counted 14 freighters in the harbor, each freighter waiting to unload its cargo of wheat. We stood there for an hour as a ton of wheat from the fields of America was lifted out of the holds of the ships. That grain spelled life to millions of hungry people in the land of India. When we returned to the attaché's office, he gathered his tabulations from his files and sat down to enter them into a calculating machine. Later, he concluded that the delivery of American wheat to India that year amounted to all the grown grain in the U.S. and Colorado. All the wheat that they delivered to India amounted to all the grain that came from Colorado. Ours is a generous country. Ours is a generous country that has been quick to respond when others are in need. I especially love America for its great spiritual strength. It is a land of churches and synagogues, of temples and tabernacles, of pulpits and altars. We have on our coinage and our currency a national motto. It simply says, "In God we trust." I believe that this is a foundation on which this nation was established, an unequivocal trust in the power of the Almighty to guide and defend us. The hand of the Almighty was made manifest on this continent even before the United States of America came into being. I have walked abroad the recreation of the Mayflower, that tiny craft in which 100 men and women and children crossed the Atlantic in search of freedom to worship God, according to the dictates of their conscience. Before even disembarking from the Mayflower and stepping ashore after their long and grueling voyage, our Pilgrim fathers drafted and signed a compact that became the instrument of their governance. The first such document drafted on this continent. It began with these words, and these words I give to you. In the name of God, amen. He went on to say that the signers by these present solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic, and by virtue hereto do enact such just and equal laws as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony. This was the first charter of civil liberty drawn in America, the first of a succession of instruments that became the foundation of a miracle in America. This miracle in America became a miracle for the world, a standard for the world to live up to. These people that immigrated from Europe, England, and other places came here to be able to worship God as they please, not be told who to worship and when. Brothers and sisters, again, this book, only this part of the chapter is talking for standing for something. Our forefathers stood for something. Our forefathers came from Europe and stood for something. All of our forefathers stand for something. It doesn't matter whether you live in Europe or wherever you are. Our forefathers stood for something. They raised us as good men and women to stand for something and to worship God and raise up our families in good standing. Brothers and sisters, I just told you a short story about this man, Gordon Hinckley, and his thoughts and ideas on the beginning of America, and these people that came from all parts of the world. Wonderful, wanting, loving people. That's how we should be. Loving, wanting, loving people. Always. Always. Brothers and sisters, we love you. We love you. We want everybody to be peaceful. We want everybody to love each other. At some point later on in our lives, this whole world is going to come unglued. But if we took something out of the book of Gordon B. Hinckley, out of his life, we could be standing for something and avoid the conflict that is surely to come. May God bless us. May God bless us that we might stand for something and do it for a reason, to help ourselves and help those around us. Not to do something for me or you, but for our families and those that we love. May God bless us to this end. I will share more frequently thoughts and ideas from this book, because there's all kinds of good stuff in it. I would hope that one day you would be able to read it. It's out there in the books. It's out there in the libraries. It's out there in the stores. It's an awesome book. Stand for something. I encourage all of us to stand for truth and righteousness in our own lives, in our own cities, in our own towns, in our worlds, in our countries. May God be with you this day and always. I will be back here tomorrow evening just after 6 p.m. with more information on earthquakes and emergency preparedness. Today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow is Preparedness Friday. I promise you a great lesson. I promise you to answer questions that you might have so that you might have the answers you need for your own preparedness issues. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. If you have any questions of me, send me an email. Send me an email. Right as soon as I get off the air, I will post information where you can reach me. Both email and snail mail. Where you can send me cards and letters. I would love to have that. or send me donations. Snail mail, PayPal, Cash App, whatever. I would love to hear from you. I love to get your support to keep this program on the air. I also got some information tonight that possibly after Saturday noon, I'm going to try again to use our computer to go on the air. And this time I believe it will work. Okay? So stand by for Saturday about noon as well. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening to talk about emergency preparedness. I love you greatly, guys. You're not just my EMA family. You're my eternal family. And I love each and every one of you. God be with you this day and always. God be with you until we meet again. We will see you possibly later tonight. If anything else happens tonight, we'll be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Otherwise, we will see you sometime after 6 p.m. tomorrow night with more Emergency Management Associates. God be with you until we meet again. We'll see you very soon. Much love, everyone. I love you tremendously. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.